was a beautiful November Monday. My girlfriend lay on the couch, on her back looking at the ceiling. I'm sitting just across from her, and I say, when I count down from 10 to 1, you will be completely relaxed. I start counting 10, 9, 8, 7, all the way down to 1. And when I get to 1, I say, you are now completely relaxed. She lay there, and I explained to her to imagine in her mind's eye a timeline. And on that timeline is a needle. That needle reads today on the timeline. I ask her to imagine that timeline going back in time. 1 day, 2 days, 10 days, a month, 2 months, a year, 10 years, all the way back until we get to the day she was born. And when we get to the day she was born, I wanted to keep going. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, until we get back to 150 years before she was born. And we get to that point when the needle reads 150 years before you were born, I wanted to stop. You see, my girlfriend and I decided we were gonna mess around with hypnosis. In fact, we decided we would do hypnosis and we would try something called the past life regression, which is where you try to see who you were in previous lives if you believe in that kind of thing. So anyway, my girlfriend is laying there completely still. And I ask her, what is your name? And she lies there still. She says, my name is Abigail. And ladies and gentlemen, this unnerves me a little bit at first, because though my girlfriend is from the South, she does not have an accent like this, but whatever, she could be faking it. I say, well, Abigail, it's nice to meet you. And as she lay there, still very still, looking at the ceiling, she goes, well, sir, I assure you that the pleasure is all mine. To whom do I have this pleasure of speaking? Now, after hearing her speak the second time, I am more unnerved. Because not only is she speaking with a Southern accent that I've never heard her use before, she is speaking with the refinement of a Southern belle. Of 40 or 50 years old, she is a completely different person speaking than I've ever heard. So now I'm blustering. I'm kind of tripping over my words. I'm like, I trip over my words for a little while longer, and I come up with a question that makes no sense. I say, well, Abigail, where are you? She lie there ever so calm. Well, Trey, that depends on your perspective, but I can say I am from the deep South. And I thought that odd that she didn't actually give me a place, just a region. Suffice it to say, at this point though, I am unnerved enough to want to stop. So I say, well, Abigail, is definitely nice to meet you, and I'm gonna count to 10. Everything's gonna be okay. And she interrupts me. She goes, well, Trey, I assure you the pleasure was all mine. I am sure we will see each other again. And she drags out that end part, that again, and she turns her head and she looks dead in the eyes. She gives me a look that I've never seen from my girlfriend before. You see, ladies and gentlemen, some things are better left unknown. Fast forward a few weeks, and I need to drive my girlfriend all the way from Gainesville, Florida to Franklin, Louisiana. I can't remember how long a drive it is. It's somewhere between 10 and 12 hours. I drive her out there, and when I get there, I realize I can't stay at her mother's house. So I'm close to New Orleans. I decide that I'm going to stay there instead. So New Orleans is maybe an hour and a half away. I drive from Franklin, Louisiana to New Orleans. I get a hotel, and then I realize since I'm there by myself, I don't really have anything to do. So I get that booklet of local attractions. Something we've all seen, but we never actually pay attention to because who goes to a place with no plan? Me that day. So I look at the list of attractions to do. On the second page, fifth one down, I see Seance. Its only caption is for the real and unimagined. And in my infinite wisdom as a 23-year-old, I decide I'm gonna go to a seance. So I call the number. An unremarkable voice answers and says that there's a seance tonight. He gives me the address. I talk to the hotel clerk. He tells me how to get there. I drive maybe 35 minutes outside of New Orleans and I get to this old, rickety dirt road. And at the end of that dirt road is what used to be a Southern mansion. And it is exactly what you think about when you think of a Southern mansion. It's got those big white pillars. It's got that weeping willow in the front yard that you always see on the cover of those novels like Gone with the Wind. I get out of the car and there are 3 people. Luckily, there are 3 people there before me, so I'm not gonna have to do this by myself. I meet a lady, she's probably in her 50s, who's a lawyer, who seems like she's just there to poke fun for the most part. There's another couple in their 30s. I don't really get a chance to speak to them, but we're all there together. We speak for a few minutes, and then a man probably in his 50s walks outside. He's wearing a navy blue suit, a white shirt, and no tie. He's got dark hair and a goatee. He explains that he's going to lead us on the seance. Before that, we get a tour of this mansion. So we go inside and it is obvious that this mansion is condemned. And then I have, probably for the first time that day, a smart thought. I think to myself, this may not be the best idea I've ever had. There are ceiling to floor stains. How do you get stains on the ceiling? And not the stains that's just the fact that no one's lived in this house. Like something has been splashed on the ceiling and the walls and the floor, and any bit of furniture that's still there is covered in these stains. We get to the end of the tour and we get to the living room. Our guide explains that if you're going to do a seance, you need to get rid of all of the external light. So he goes to great pains to make sure that all the places where light was leaking in are plugged. There are 4 things on the table: a candle, a rope, a metal cup, and a bell. The candle is lit, and at this point, it's the only light in the room. We're sitting around a square table that's got all kinds of different chairs on it. It's got really rickety wooden chairs. It's got really nice metal, new looking metal chairs. It's got old antique chairs. We sit down and he explains that typically he speaks to a spirit named David that died in the house some years before. And then he describes the chant we are going to do. And ladies and gentlemen, to this day, that chant kind of unnerves me when I say it. He has us put our right hand on a rope and a left hand on the wrist of the person next to us. We're instructed to say these words: If this is the door, if this is the gate, we open the door, we open the gate. If this is the door, if this is the gate, we open the door, we open the gate. We say that until it rises in pace and in volume. And then suddenly, that candle light goes off. Our guide, who is hammering it up pretty hard at this point, says, "Shh. David, is that you?" Silence. "Shh," he says again. "Is there someone here with us? Give us a sign." And that candle comes back on. Now that's not impossible to fake, but it's a neat trick, I can tell you at the moment. And then he says, "Give us a sign that there's someone here." And that bell rings. Our guide then says, "Have I ever spoken to you before?" Nothing. And then in jest, he says, "Have you ever spoken to anybody else here before?" And the bell dings. Now, up to this point, it really looked like he was putting on a show, but he looks a little bit confused at this point. And then, as if a light bulb goes off in his eyes, he says, "Oh, there must be other spirits here that it's known. It's no problem." So I'm not going to go into the details of the middle of the seance, but he asks questions, the bell rings, the goblet falls over, the candle lights up and goes out a few times. Some interesting things happen, but it really gets interesting when we get to the end. He explains to us that a minor and major seance are different, and what we did in the beginning was a minor seance. It's when you try to invoke a spirit, but a major seance is when you try to control it. And we are now going to take our seance into a major seance, in that we're going to try to send the spirit away. He instructs us to put our left hand on the rope and our right hand on the wrist of the person to our right. And he instructs us to say, if this is the door, if this is the gate, we close the door, we close the gate. This is the door, if this is the gate, we close the door, we close the gate. That rises in pitch and volume just the same as before, but what's different this time, ladies and gentlemen, is that if there is something in there with us, whatever is in there with us does not appreciate being pushed away. That bell is now ringing very angrily. It sounds like someone is taking that goblet and beating it on the table. That candle is now flickering, going on and off. And there are noises I can't really explain, other than the fact that they just sound altogether wrong. So as things are going completely crazy and we're saying this chant, ladies and gentlemen, I feel ever so slightly a finger caress my left jaw bone. Ever so slightly, but I wasn't ready for it, so I braced and I turned my head to the right, and it's as if someone knew exactly how I was going to turn my head, because I hear whispered so that only I can hear it, but unmistakably that I heard it. "It was nice to see you again, Trey." I don't know how many of you have experienced something preternatural or supernatural that you couldn't explain, something that scared you in a way that nothing real in the real world can scare you. But I can tell you that I don't have any memory of what happened between that point and when I got home. In fact, the only thing I remember is the personal conversation I had with myself as I lie in bed, trying to rationalize what happened, how they could make this production, how they could know about Abigail when I didn't tell anyone. But like anyone's mind, mine eventually drifts to the idea, what if it was real? That would mean that I wasn't doing a past life regression. What did I call in to my girlfriend that afternoon? And ladies and gentlemen, this is when I really get scared. Is it still with her? No, it wouldn't be with her. Is it still with me? Ladies and gentlemen, some things are better left unknown. Thank you. You just finished listening to my Halloween story. I sincerely hope you liked it. I did this for a Toastmasters meeting sometime around Halloween, and all the sound effects you heard were actually used on site. I hit a speaker and I played the sound effects while I did the story, and it went over really, really well. All the music you heard, I added just for this. One of the things I really like doing is helping people write speeches and be better speakers, and finding ways to really take the audience's attention. I do coaching, and I would really love the chance to work with you if you're interested. So hit me up at www.educraftideas.com or check out the link below. Thanks.